We first brought you the story of David Switzer 2 weeks ago. Dozens of people claim he stole their life savings. After our story aired, even more alleged victims came forward. So our Mary Garofalo took their concerns straight to the top. This week, an update to our 16x9 investigation.
Last week on the global television show 16x9, reporter Mary Garofalo exposed Dave Switzer and his accomplice, Doreen Henderson, now living in New Hamburg, Ontario. She also had interviews with at least a dozen victims, people who were built out of life savings. Why has this man not been arrested, charged, and put to trial?
This is the man at the center of the firestorm who sparked NDP Justice critic Peter Cormos to demand answers from Ontario Minister of Community Safety, Rick Bartolucci.
If the member is asking me to interfere with policing operations, the answer is categorically no.
His name is Dave Switzer, but he's also known by other names. The Digger, Switzy, and Schweitzer, a man who crisscrosses the country claiming to be a paralegal by day and a poker shark by night. With his sidekick, Doreen Henderson, Switzer is alleged to have conned dozens of people for hundreds of thousands of dollars. He was the subject of a 16x9 investigation. We tracked him down to get some answers.
They say they came to you for legal advice, and you in fact promised and produced lawsuits that never actually existed, and that your friend Doreen here, her name is on checks and legal documents. Anything to say to all these people who call you a con man, who say that you took their money?
He didn't want to talk to us, but all these people who call themselves victims of Dave Switzer did. And after our story aired, even more people came forward with harrowing tales of a man they thought they could trust, but who they say stole their money.
I met him in 1990/91 at the Maplehurst Correctional Center. I was doing a time on some charges, and
Can you tell us what those charges are?
Yep, armed robbery. I did 2 years less a day. He was doing 15 months on a fraud charge, unrelated to anything with me. We just kind of met while we were in there.
Mike Kurtz says he spent 5 months getting to know Switzer in jail. But it wasn't until years later that the two met up again by chance at this campground in New Hamburg. He says Switzer offered him a job, but he says he slowly realized Switzer was up to his old tricks.
He was repossessing cars. He was storing them in the back of the campgrounds where nobody else could see them. And then a day later, he was getting me to sell them on eBay for them. But I don't think Dave had any business selling these vehicles.
Were they repossessed or were they stolen?
Again, I don't know. He just didn't have ownership for any of these vehicles. So with that being said, I was getting emails from these people saying, where is the ownership? I need the ownership. And some people were very nasty about it.
According to Kurtz, people were being taken for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and says Switzer also acted as a paralegal, accepting legal cases and promising lawsuits and settlements that never happened. He says whatever money Switzer was able to get went straight to the casinos.
It's gone to poker, it's gone to the slot machines. I have seen where he has brought in a box of money, I'm sure that he has taken from somebody, thrown it on his counter, wrapped in elastic bands, $37,000 to be exact. This guy was spending $60 in the span of about 3.5 seconds. For him to go through $10,000, $20,000, he never walked away mad, just a drop in the bucket.
And the most disturbing claim about Switzer is how this alleged con man dresses in a white collar and robes, telling everyone he's an ordained minister. Kurt says Switzer would often visit the palliative care unit of hospitals.
He's told me, okay, that he goes and he visits the old people that are on pretty much their deathbed to make sure that they have a will. I mean, you're dying half in your bed, for crying out loud, and he's gaining their trust. He's saying, I'm going to pray for you. What is it that I can do for you? Do you have all your assets taken care of when you pass away? Do you need a will done up?
How does Doreen Henderson play?
I think she's the brains behind it. I think that she does up the contracts.
That's what Kurtz told Ontario Provincial Police, who recently interviewed him about Switzer. 16 by 9 has learned Doreen Henderson, who lives and helps Switzer with his questionable business deals, works as an independent insurance agent for Combined Insurance. A company attorney tells us after viewing our story, Henderson is suspended and the company is actively investigating her policies. They say they are willing to cooperate with authorities if there is an investigation.
He was there with his robe on, his collar, and a Bible under his arm, and said that he's just got a few minutes to be with us because he's with this lady that's dying.
Murray Poole says he hired Switzer to do some legal work for him, except the so-called paralegal showed up dressed up as a minister and asked him to meet him here inside the chapel at Stratford General Hospital. The chapel is located just outside the entrance to the palliative care unit.
He took us into the chapel, and it was some more of his gibber that never ever amounted to a hill of beans. I think the whole thing was to show us that he had a robe.
We contacted Stratford General Hospital. They tell us Pastoral Services has never heard of Dave Switzer. Murray Poole, who owns this local campground just outside of Kitchener, says he believes Switzer goes wherever he smells money.
He claimed he had this $30 million contract to repossess cars, boats, houses, trucks, you name it.
Murray says he invested in property and vehicles that never materialized.
What's the ballpark figure of what you've actually lost?
200,000 plus.
He is one of the most sleaziest characters that I have ever come across in my lifetime.
And Tracy Robinson, a mother of 5, says she was suckered into handing over virtually her life savings, thinking she was buying repossessed properties at a steal, except the properties were already owned legitimately by someone else, including this man, Russ Langfield. 16 by 9 has learned she is now the 3rd potential buyer of his farm, which Russ Langfield says was never for sale.
He told us that he was a gentleman that was divorcing his wife and he wanted to get rid of it quick and cheap so that she couldn't get nothing.
And how much money are you out altogether?
It was $72,000 to begin with.
But one man wants to stop Switzer where it hurts the most, at the poker table. Kelly Kellner is the president of the Canadian Poker Tour, a place Switzer likes to spend a lot of his time and money.
It would be definitely my intention to make it very uncomfortable for him if he comes to play to one of my events again.
He says Switzer even tried to scam him with a $1 million sponsorship deal that never happened. And he says the poker community knows of Switzer and his alleged schemes.
I've had a number of players, members of the Canadian Poker Tour that have come up to me over the last year and just told me a series of horror stories about losing money, about how they've bought everything from combines to cars and trucks and assets from him, all with the same underlying story and basically selling assets that don't exist.
So the questions remain. Did Switzer really perform paralegal services? Is he an ordained minister or just dressing up like one? And did he con people out of their money? We've contacted him numerous times for answers, but he's just not talking. According to Waterloo Regional Police, all 3 complaints they've received about Switzer have been dealt with, and the RCMP will not confirm or deny they are investigating him. And 16 by 9 has learned that the Ontario Provincial Police are now interviewing the alleged victims in our story. But everyone we spoke to doesn't understand why Switzer is still walking the streets. NDP Justice critic Peter Cormos is demanding action.
It's imperative that some police body accept responsibility and to lay the charges that have to be laid and to prosecute this guy, and if he's found guilty, to put him behind bars.